So hi everyone, welcome and thank you so much for being here. I'm glad to have you all for our second From Founder to Franchisor conversation with Haven's founder, Britt Riley. My name is Karina Halloran and I will be today's moderator. So as some of you may know, in our webinar series, Britt invites thoughtful and meaningful dialogue about what it truly means to build a purpose-driven brand, one designed to make a real difference for families and communities. In today's chat, we have Haven's founder, Britt Riley, and founding Haven member, Ceileidh Siegel. Our goal here is to explain the incredible impact that Haven can have on both family and career, and as both mothers and leaders in their communities and at work. Both Ceileidh and Britt viscerally understand the significance of Haven's signature family care model. Our goal today is to have a 20-minute chat, and then at the end, we'll do a 15-minute Q&A with your questions. So please, please, please add them to the chat. Anyways, before we go further, they will do a much better job introducing themselves. So I will pass the mic to Britt.
Hello. I'm so excited to do this today. Bringing Kaylee on is, well, it's a lot of fun. And all of our conversations are a lot of fun, but also very meaningful. So I'm Britt Riley. I'm the CEO and founder of Haven. Hatched the idea when I had my own little babies back in 2017, 2018, and opened our first club in 2019. But we offer fully licensed childcare alongside workspace and fitness for all of our member families to utilize and benefit from and live their best lives in. So yeah, that's me, and I'm excited to chat with Kaylee today, and over to you.
Awesome. Well, nice to get to hang out with you in this oddly professional setting. It's great. But nice to meet everybody who's online. I'm Ceileidh Siegel. What I tell my parents I do is I'm a professional brainstormer with Amazon's Toolbox. So I kind of go into companies and help them think bigger and build faster. I'm also a proud mom to a now 8-year-old who was a member of the Haven community from age 2 to 5. I stayed as a member right until the last minute of her aging out and starting kindergarten at one of our local schools. So super impactful place, and really excited to be here for this conversation.
Me too. And so Kaylee's daughter was in the same class as my youngest daughter, Zoe. And so we both got to watch them grow through the program from the very beginning. And the wild thing was it kind of so Kaylee started before COVID happened, which means that you started within our first 6 months of being open, period, which is awesome. Uh, but and we've talked about it in the past. It's really wild. You were one of the families who, when you walked in for the very first time, it was kind of like, what is this? Is this real? And I remember you're one of the families, like one of the very first families who I literally had to look straight in the eye and say, I think it's gonna work, but we're gonna have to figure it out together. And, it essentially is this, I really hope so.
Yeah.
But you got to see the whole thing then. So you got to see it from the very beginning when we were trying to figure it out to having to close for COVID, which was, you know, uh, interesting to say the least. And then coming back from COVID, getting to spend the whole rest of, the time. And we added pre-K for, essentially when Zoe and Dottie's their classes were growing through the program. None of us wanted to, none of us wanted to.
They hit the ceiling and we're not done yet.
Yeah,
So let's
none of
expand.
us wanted to hand them off to, the real world yet. And I don't know, we'd have a third grade if I could, but
Totally.
we couldn't manage
Yeah,
it.
actually just thinking out loud, Ceileidh, can you go into a little bit more about how you found Haven? I know that there's something about like an article in the Newport Daily News.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear more about that story, especially what drew you to Haven as a founding member. You found us in September, I think, of 2019.
That's right
absolutely.
when we opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Just a brief history of time. I spent about 15 years working at Hasbro, the toy company. And if you're in Rhode Island, that is kind of one of the biggest, baddest jobs you can work in as a creative and business-minded person. But I knew I personally wanted something different. And I was like, I want to work remote. And this was before COVID. I want to stay in innovation, which is my particular area of expertise and interest. And I wanted to work for a brand that I thought wouldn't clip my wings. So I ended up finding a job within AWS, which is the cloud computing arm of Amazon. And actually, just before I found out about Haven, was my onboarding at AWS, July of 2019. And so this was a few days before my daughter turned 2, and my onboarding was in Austin, Texas. So simultaneously, I weaned my daughter and started at AWS all within a 36-hour period, which is kind of insane when you think about the magnitude of life changes in such a compressed time. Now, with that, I came back from my onboarding and I was like, what does this new normal look like working from home? I had had different sets of infrastructure to cover a typical, commuter-based job in Pawtucket. And what that meant to me was I was like, okay, I need like random babysitting because sometimes I definitely needed the help. My partner is a firefighter as well, so he works at a peculiar rotating schedule that is often difficult for a typical childcare provider to be able to be like, sure, I'll work on Wednesday and then again on Saturday. Okay, like no one can sign up for that within reason. So, to bring it back around to the point, I was probably doom scrolling Facebook and come across a article in the Newport Daily News, and I don't read the Newport Daily News, but I saw the headline about daycare, co-working, and fitness, and I'm literally reading this, going, "Shut up, take my money," and I had this new career that provided more for my family than I'd ever been able to before, but far more pressure and far more flexibility that was needed in the way that we were going to work and the way we were going to travel. So within that space, I read the article and promptly went on to the website, and I was like, I'm booking a tour. This looks amazing. Personally, I went to a Waldorf school from first through eighth grade, and so to see that this was kind of Montessori, Reggio Emilia inspired and a lot of outdoor playtime, I was just like, okay, this is the kind of place that I know my kid is going to thrive and aligns with my family values. And just the idea that I would be able to be physically close, observing her, through the window on the playground, while, being able to have this unbelievable amount of focus that you're able to generate in those co-working rooms as a parent with peace of mind was kind of next level. So yeah, it really started from that article. I think it's framed somewhere in the Middletown location.
Oh, I love that.
I think it is.
That's wonderful. And actually, Britt, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Like, as especially for folks who want to own a haven, like what does it feel like to see a parent truly thrive and find you guys and then excel in their career and and as a parent as well?
Well, it's the best, and I think one of my fondest memories of starting Haven in general was some of the earliest conversations that I had with Kaylee. I mean, because she was going through like this monumental time, and I didn't, I didn't know what the future would look like, but you couldn't possibly imagine being able to show up for people in the way that you're able to with Haven. And so like for me, I'll never forget the early conversations that I had with Kaylee because those were all part of those early days of touring people and saying, we're putting this together. It's yours. Do with it what you want. The kids are good. And then knowing that the kids were in good shape and in great hands, and then being able to be around and, not every day, but pretty much you'd end up at the window, with like a cup of coffee and we'd be chatting and looking out and the kids are having a blast and like they're independent and they could look up at us and like they wouldn't immediately like break into then that would be the fear is like, oh, if they see me, what's
Don't
gonna
break the
happen?
seal.
Yeah, it's like, but it didn't end up like that because they were good. Like they
Yeah.
knew that they were just out with their friends and playing and doing their thing. And that gave us this ultimate peace of mind. And so over the years, seeing, the way that Kaylee and her family and how everyone's just progressed and done everything you could possibly want for people, that's been like the most fulfilling experience I think anyone could ever have as a business owner. Um, it goes
That's
so far beyond starting a business for the purpose of economics, and that is something which I could never like you can't value that more for me. Um, so yeah, those are the experiences that really shaped like why we're here now trying to grow it is because everyone who gets to do it now, it's like they get to have those experiences all the time, every
I
day with people.
Yeah.
I love that. And I love that also you mentioned peace of mind because that's so central to Haven's ethos as a company. So I'd love to hear from you, Ceileidh, about how Haven gave you peace of mind to support your dynamic family and that you could grow as both professionally and then also as a mom.
Yeah. Well, we could put it simply. I got promoted at AWS a few years ago, and the top two, well, three people that I named, one was Britt Riley and Haven Collection, two was my brilliant and thoughtful house cleaner, and three was my amazingly supportive partner, Chris. So, like those three, I could not do what I do without that ecosystem of support. So when I think about it, I welcome to my home office. It's lovely. But you know what is right behind that door is my laundry. And the reality is, as a working parent, never mind a working mom, um, all of those to-do lists and mental load that involves genuinely working from home exist even if you have childcare at home. And so the idea, certainly in that novel environment of like the amount of focus and productivity flow that you have, knowing that your kid is okay, content. Maybe they're brilliantly happy, maybe they're crying. They're kids. They will be okay. But that idea that you are confident in how they are being cared for and that you are then able to provide your full mental and, I'd say intellectual energy towards the task at hand means that you then become an indispensable employee as well. So I think back to my time, in the little offices in Rhode Island, and I was able to achieve one of my certified cloud practitioner, what's it called? An AWS certification, essentially a pretty hard exam for somebody who, I went to art school and engineering school, and computer science was not something exactly in my wheelhouse. So the amount of time I was able to spend like fully dedicated to that, and then also to be able to do, dynamic but yet virtual presentations. I have spoken to many heads of companies from those tiny little offices, but the idea that you are able to set the mental load aside from what is a typical home office and then bolster that with the confidence in the childcare. And while vocally self-critical, I didn't get to use the gym equipment as much as I would have liked. I've spent a lot of personal energy investing in my own fitness in the last few years since my time at Haven, and I'm like, man, what I wouldn't do for that Peloton bike experience to squeeze that in for the 30 minutes, between meetings, etc. So it really is just about setting the conditions for the ultimate amount of focus on the task at hand and kind of entering that flow state automatically. It's like at this phase of Pavlovian response, when you open those doors, your kid is okay and your career is okay if you can, have that day. It's kind of magical.
That's so wonderful to hear. And Britt, I know you're the expert in this, so I'd love to hear your thoughts off of that about like what do you think people underestimate with how much cognitive and emotional bandwidth that caregivers consume. I mean, it's like I think Kaylee once explained that her brain felt it was split in three different directions. So,
Yeah.
from your experience, how do you think about that?
I mean, that to me is it's the difference between exactly what Kayla was just talking about, which is being at home. And this is kind of what also started me thinking about the idea of this is if you're at home and you have the kids at home with you, there's typically not enough separation or there's not enough structured separation to be able to really turn it off, like to be able to really actually focus on um what the task at hand or whatever it is that you're doing. And that was something which I noticed and I notice now it's a giant difference for parents. And it was certainly for me the transition of I had had that lived experience and then I got to experience that as a parent at Haven. And from that perspective, there I a parent who has peace of mind can get done in an hour what any other human could probably get done in 24. Like there is so much kind of condensed
Yeah.
um energy that you can give to it. So I mean, I think that that is one of it's we see so many parents at Haven who are working through they're working through their career, but then they're also able to not just work through their career and not just feel like they're getting by, but actually just like propel themselves and their families into a position where they've always wanted, it's like things that they've always wanted to put together. And so seeing that stuff, like it the only thing that could possibly get you there is the ability to concentrate, like the ability to have peace of mind. Like I don't you can't get to that point without having that kind of um, peace of mind, which leads you to productivity. And I've seen it. I mean, now I see videos and pictures and stuff of Kaylee on these giant keynote stages all over, the world representing AWS. And you think about it and you're like, m- what she's been able to achieve is what I dream for everyone to achieve in whatever that looks like for them, because it looks different for everyone. But what it symbolizes for me is if you support parents, they can genuinely do anything. And if and that's what we do. Like that's all we do.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think we speak so much about family care and inviting parents through the door, and so that we have fitness and childcare and workspaces all under one roof. So I'd love to hear your thoughts, Kaylee, directly. Like, what did family care mean to you while you were at Haven, while Dottie was there?
Yeah, I mean, it really meant that there was that comprehensive support system. And so we had like a traditional recurring schedule that made sense. And then, like I mentioned, my husband works as a firefighter. And so to be able to be flexible when we needed to as well, whether that was me needing to jet off on a work trip and I wasn't in the co-working space, but I had confidence that Dorothy was taken care of and that, a grandmother, a friend, her dad would be picking her up and that could work, as well. But I think the blend of like the ability to really make the most of your time as a parent and as an employee and kind of be have that ability to ruthlessly prioritize and get done in an hour, and or the 5 hour block, like this is the exact amount of time I'm going to be here and these are the 15 things I'm going to complete. And you better believe it, that list was done when you're leaving the door, which also meant that you were able to return to more traditional parenting when you got home. You could
Yeah.
be laying on the floor, you could be, making dinner, you could be doing what you need because you're not having that work hangover follow you or that pit in your stomach that says, I didn't get through the
Yeah.
parts that I promised myself or I promised my team. So I think the idea that like you're able to so efficiently use the time because of that the unique combination of space and skills that are available at Haven, and then to begin to say, how does this affect other parts of my life? What are the other things that I can thoughtfully insource or outsource to be able to provide that focus? Like, I look in general, I'm like, there's only a few things you can't receive help for. You can't replace being a parent, you can't replace being a partner, and you can't replace, who you are at work, but you can augment all of those systems. And last one will be fitness. Like no one else will do that work for you. So if you have those kind of four pillars for me, then I think about what are the comprehensive systems that can support all of those pieces so that because there ain't nobody else going to be the mom and no one else is going to be the partner, no one else is going to be the employee, and no one's going to run for me. So within that space, then using all of this infrastructure to know, of course I want to read to my daughter, but the idea that like she's been read to all day, she's in a literacy rich environment, she's learning, she's developing, it means that like we can do the things we want to do. I'm not making up for some, random babysitter who, of course they're doing a great job, but it's like, no, she's in a structured environment that's helping challenge and helping her grow in a way that means that I can just be the mom I want to be when we're back together, at the end of a session as well.
That's so that I just love that. And I love that term work hangover that you've used. I
I
think
just invented it. I don't
that's
even
so
drink.
accurate.
So
And so Britt, like knowing the difference, you lived the difference of childcare, dropping Harper off and then like waving goodbye and having to go
Yeah.
on, and you lived family care. So like what does that distinction actually mean in the real life for working parents from your own experience as both like CEO and leader of Haven all the way down to being a mom?
I think it's just the like everybody always talks about that guilt. Like there's a guilt feeling that takes over for a lot of people. I lived that in an intense way before being able to open the doors of Haven. Um, I always felt like I really wanted to do well in my career. I never ever really had this kind of, I always knew that I wanted to work when I had kids. I wanted my kids to see me, working and being independent. And so then once, I felt like, all right, well, we're ready to start a family. I just remember thinking to myself, like, all right, well, nailed the work thing, like kids are gonna come and it's gonna be it'll be fine. And that couldn't you just don't know this part until you experience it. Things change and you have to adapt. And so I think having the support of essentially, and I love the way that Kayleigh's brain, like the way that your brain works and when you think about the systems and things, and this is how we've thought over the years a lot about Haven is if you provide the environment for a family to be able to essentially, and this is, I always talk about it as things that are on the car, like on the table for us to provide for families are anything that takes that feeling of guilt and stress off their shoulders. And
yep,
so anything that we can possibly do to help take away the noise and take away the stressors and the guilt from a family's experience, it means that, and really this is kind of like at the end of the day, it means that people have a better, you know, experience of mental health and mental well-being. And you can't possibly want that more for people, especially when they're parenting young kids. And so my experience was I I felt like I was pulled in 1,000 different directions when I had, the first 2 years of being a parent. And that was awful for your mental health, because you're like, well, I knew how to do my job. And then also, I've got this little baby, or I'm struggling with, whether it was nursing and having to travel, or with my second daughter, she wouldn't take a bottle ever.
yep,
And so it was not being able to travel, but wanting to do my job. And so, like, the whole kind of paradigm was lived. And then once you have that support of a haven, it really is just if you build the village and if you build the support system, then people are able to do things. And so then when you look at, all right, well, so we've had the club, Zoe was able to spend 3 years
yep.
in a haven, and Harper as well for a period of time. I never in a million years would have been able to not only open the first Haven, but for us, Morgan had Jack, who was 6 weeks old when we closed for COVID. Like for the two of us at that time to build a second Haven and a third and to launch these programs, never in a million years would we have been able to do that if we had opened any other kind of company. Like when I look at the reason why we got to do what we've done, it's because as parents, we had Haven. So like that's a real full circle kind of idea around all of it, but it's helped us as much as it's helped anybody else.
Oh, I just love that the full circle mentality. And so just as a reminder for everyone, please pop in your questions. We'll kind of come to them in the next couple of minutes. So, I'm going to throw this question for both of you. I mean, what gives you hope about the world of work and caregiving and family care and motherhood? I think we all need a time of hope right now. So I'd love to hear your thoughts from both of you on that.
Yeah,
Haley?
I could
Yeah.
start. Yeah, I mean, I think we all need some bright lights to look forward to and to really kind of anchor on. What I think is some of the things that I would focus on here is, where the experience for the child at Haven is raising the future that I certainly want to see. That's kindness and cooperation and bravery and learning and being self-sufficient and all those pieces. Like every child deserves that, whether that's going to be in a beautiful setting in Middletown, Rhode Island, or that's going to be in a public pre-K program. Like that should be our hope for all people who choose to grow a family, is that everyone could or should have access. But knowing you have access to a place like this is really tantamount to saying you're putting in the right ingredients. I think there's also been tremendous evidence, lots of studies coming out that I can't cite off the top of my head, but it's really good for children to see their parents, especially their mothers, in the workforce. And that example that they can literally or figuratively see that you are going to work while you're at a Haven. And in Britt's case, it is your actual job, but it, wouldn't have been possible without the infrastructure that you created. It's a nice little flywheel effect in that way. But the idea that that work and the proximity to it is something really to be inspired. And then to begin to think about if we are to really advocate for larger scale social change, what is the untapped potential of all of these parents who could be in that flow state, iterating on the future of cloud computing or the next startup or, a brand new innovation in healthcare. All of those things can and should be happening in the proverbial upstairs of a Haven. And so for us to be advocates for those types of experiences and grow them and support them, and I think that's where I tend to look, is like, how do you know that you're putting in the right ingredients for yourself and for your children? Because I don't have a crystal ball. You cannot know, but the durable needs are unchanging. Children need to be cared for and loved and inspired and need to be safe in order for any of the other things to actually work. So keeping at those foundational pieces. And then for parents, they really just need like strong Wi-Fi connection, really good coffee, people in the like-minded area. Obviously our durable needs are evolving, but I think it's important to say, I can thrive because of these areas, and my child can thrive because of those, and that those are things we want everyone to have access to, and it's our duty to help to provide that.
And Britt, what are your thoughts on what's giving you hope with the future of work and caregiving and family care? And as Haven expands around the nation, I'd love to hear your thoughts about hope for the future.
I mean, I couldn't agree with you more, Kaylee, about kind of what you were talking about there. And then for me, the more that as we're starting to try and grow this, and the goal is to be able to shift childcare as an industry towards family care. And the reason for that is everybody does better when everyone's supported, right? And it's kind of like rising tide raises all boats, that kind of that kind of mindset. And so any little win that we have, and it always gives me so much hope. And even just seeing things like when you have a conversation with a parent and they've had a conversation with their workplace and they've been given this ability to work remote and to utilize a Haven facility, that gives me hope. Like on a kind of micro level, it gives me a lot of hope because it shows that people are seeing how productive and how much kind of performance is able to take place when you put people in a supportive environment. And so I think there have been a lot of shifts in that. Um, I think that this is all obviously like we're doing everything we can to support looking out for our neighbors, right? Like that gives me hope. Knowing that every Haven community that opens is going to be a group of people who are looking out for each other and who are looking out for their neighbors and who I mean, every club that you spend time in, everybody knows what each other's working towards. Like nobody works at the same company for the most part. So, like some people, there's some like clusters of people who work for the same company, but for the most part, it's parents who are all going to be connected forever, who are so supportive of each other, who encourage each other through their challenges. Like it's everything that I personally could want for another parent and for people. So, I mean, the ecosystem gives me a ton of hope. And I feel so grateful to be able to be expanding it right now because I feel like it is a time where everyone needs to just look out for each other and take care of each other. And that's what we can do. Like if that's all we can do right now, then that's it's good.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. And actually to that, Stephanie in the question in the chat has asked if there's anyone in Central Mass who's attending to be interested in partnering up. She needs a village to build her Haven village. So if there's anyone out there or if you
I
know
love that.
somebody, it's wonderful. And I think the more that Haven starts to grow and one thing actually, Ceileidh, that was in the questions earlier was that like, how did Haven prepare Dottie for kindergarten and the world beyond? I think some potential franchise owners would love to hear a little bit more about the Haven method and education model.
Absolutely. So, from my perspective, it really hit on what I was hoping would work well for my daughter, which is kind of that whole child learning and development and being in the literacy rich environment, but also very much play based. I'm a huge advocate for that in general, and I wouldn't have been sending my daughter to a place that is, dittos teach to the test, early technology. Like none of that is something that I want. Your mileage may vary, but those were the things that were really important to me. So, we were there for about three years, which was super impactful and kind of the blend of, beautiful crafts and things that she would bring home. I think I still have some of them here, which is my mom is 14 years old and her favorite food is avocado toast. And she would give me a computer, everything from the traditional kitty crafts like stuff, uh, Christmas ornaments and the like, but really those precious milestones, and then also captained by a real investment into the curriculum. And I would say that is a major differentiator from your typical daycare type experiences that this there is a full-time curriculum lead that is very much focused on the business of growing up and how learning through play and is able to be qualified and replicated through frankly a rigorous curriculum that appears just as a brilliant play-based environment for the kids. So I think in general, I was very happy with the experience as is. And then transitioning to the kindergarten that she joined was seamless, frankly. I mean, she spends a lot of time outdoors at the school, so that was not a surprise. She was well up to speed on all of the basics of letters, numbers, counting, identification, and even navigating through basic stuff like she went from diapers to training pants to doing all of her own stuff and being largely self-sufficient and feeding and going to the bathroom and things like that. So the general checkbox readiness things were, frankly important to be given the green light for kindergarten, but then also looking at the way that each of the students were kind of evaluated and navigated their way into the age appropriate classrooms with their peers and what might be the things that we either are totally fine on or need to double down on before this student is ready. And I saw both of those things. Thankfully, Dottie thrives through all of it, but I love the blend of a real play-based curriculum that then transitions into like all of the academic essentials are well within reach for the way that it was created and then delivered through each of the staff members. This is not like, oh yeah, 15 minutes of actual classroom and then the rest of it you can just go do whatever. No, it was completely integrated and ingrained throughout the day. So much so that we are now, how many years since 3 years since we've been a member, and Dot will still ask me, can we drive by Haven? Can we just check in the parking lot and see if anybody's there? And she still has such fond memories of the experience.
Oh, that's so wonderful. And Britt, I know we'll get into this next week with inviting Haley, the lead educator of Haven, but can you just round out Kaylee's answer just a little bit more in terms of like
Oh,
how was
the way that she was just describing it is so it's so accurate, and it kind of got me thinking. I was like, you know what, actually our curriculum kind of is like, the pouches that all of our kids like we give our kids these pouches and we all desperately depend on them because it's the only way to sneak vegetables into their diet. Like when I think about our curriculum, I also think about there are so many layers to it, but one of the ones which I find, you know, so so special and enriching genuinely is that it is fully integrated and play-based. And so some people hear that and on the surface they're like, "Oh, well, that doesn't sound serious enough." Well, actually, no, this is the version of like sneaking all the vegetables that they could possibly need into a good experience. And there's been so much energy and effort, and I'm grateful also that so many people do notice like the curriculum has been something that we've focused on since the very beginning, and we know how important it is. And on the foundation of it, and we are going to talk about this next month because Haley and Dr. Conley are going to join us. Um, but the the foundation of it is what we're trying to help kids achieve is building the kind of character, like building that sense of self, that sense of security, that sense of independence, that sense of nurture, and all the things which we know if someone feels really good in themselves, then they can go into any environment and succeed. It doesn't matter what environment it is. And I heard that a lot in what you were just talking about, the transition to kindergarten, where yeah, everybody's technically ready for it. That's not even a concern. That like they work through all of that stuff, and of course, like sneaky on the side, the teachers are always keeping track and checking in with the parents and everything about progress. But for the kids and from the kids' lived experience, they just really love their experience throughout the day. And yeah, when they leave Haven, I mean, they're doing phenomenal things from an academic standpoint. But what is most important is they're independent and they're confident and they feel loved and they feel supported and they feel secure and they don't question, like their well-being. And that all day long is kind of the super solid bedrock of our curriculum's foundation and what we're trying to achieve for people. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for the conversation with Haley and Deanna next month. And I know that Kaylee will also appreciate it because both of us, both Deanna and Haley, have been with us since the very beginning. Um, and they have since moved into these just sage, amazing, like the amount of sage wisdom which is present in those two women, is mind-blowing, and the way they deliver it is exactly how you'd want, anything to be delivered, which is with this quiet calm, and everything that comes from that has been just so powerful for all the families that have been able to engage with it. So yeah, I mean, the Haven Method conversation is going to be one that's phenomenal. It's going to be great.
No, the Haven method is so special, and just like perhaps I'm biased, but I feel like all the littles who grow up into the big world, they are more prepared than anyone else, and so I think any franchise owner can just be so what's the word? Just appreciative of the amount of work that's been put into the education play-based model. I think you guys have done incredible work, and Kaylee Dottie can speak to it so well. And so, kind of with our last couple of minutes, is there anything else that either of you would like to add about, your lifestyle and how that fit into Haven? And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I could share just a little bit, working at the time for AWS as a fully remote employee, and there's a blend of you're expected to be s- in your office, wherever that might be, or on site with customers, which would mean a good bit of traveling associated with that. Sometimes I'd be, in Atlanta for a few days or in Seattle for a week or something like that. So one, I think to be able to have the confidence in the care that your child is having when you are sure only a few feet away, but change that to a few hundred or thousand miles away. And it's really important to be able to kind of walk the line between those two experiences and know that like as a working parent, sometimes traveling is a break, actually, even if it means you're working a 15-hour day or something like that. But the reality is that the Haven experience can really support each of those domains. And though I'm talking from a fully traditional corporate type job, I'd also encourage folks who are working on their own big ideas that this could be a place to support you as well. Like, again, when I think about the level of focus and the amount of detail that you can accomplish because you are in those kind of insulated spaces for thinking and thinking big, and the inevitable community that's going to be there in some of the shared spaces, the kind of like-minded parents that also saw value in this, the likelihood that that developer you might need for your startup idea,
Yeah.
they she might be two doors down and checking in on kind of that. I'll call it like your alumni association, maybe, of the folks like this is a really tremendous Rolodex of like-minded people who believe in something like that and certainly could be your allies or your beta testers for your next big idea. So it's interesting in my mind how it could support both of those types of careers and then to be able to understand how it could grow with you as your own career and family evolves for sure.
That's so wonderful. And Britt, you've seen that in real time. You've seen moms just grow through their career. I think you've
Dads
seen that
too.
dads
Everybody.
as well. Yeah, just
Yep. I mean, the whole anybody who uses the club, and it's really neat to kind of like check in with people throughout the journey. Um, because there are people plenty of people actually who, they've gone through lots of different promotions, whether it's in the corporate side of things, or also people who were self-employed when they started, and once they started getting that support, and also the ears like Kaylee was just talking about, of other people to like kind of bounce ideas off of, um their ideas become their full-time business, and so it's really cool. And I think one of the things which has evolved over the years has been, we have so much involvement now from parents who their kids have aged out, and then the parents will stay.
Yeah.
Like we've got a post Haven membership where we've got all these parents, and the coolest thing is like some of them have nurtured their own businesses, and they're sticking around after. Um, and it's just this kind of like a nurturing community. And then same thing beforehand, we've recently introduced a a pre-membership membership, basically, where parents who are expecting, who have deposited to join us, are able to spend time at the club, and that's great because it's kind of getting them ready for parenthood, or getting them ready for their experience, which is awesome. But yeah, there's a lot. There's so much. I mean, I could talk to Kaylee all day. We do sometimes.
Yeah, no,
Have
and
enough time.
just no, I wish we could have another one. So maybe we'll invite you back, Kaylee. I think it's a
I'm
definite.
in.
Thank you both, and thank you all in our audience for this wonderful time. I know that we are out; we've gone over a minute, but so I hope that's okay. And so please join us next month on February 12th with Haley D'Souza and Dr. Dina Conley, the team behind the Haven Method. And then please reach out to Kim at Haven Franchising, or visit us online at havenfranchising.com. If you're in the Middletown or New Jersey area, please come and say hello and sign up. And yeah, so thank you all both really for your time, and really appreciate this conversation.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for joining
Thank
us,
you. All
Kaylee.
right.
You the
Bye,
best.
everyone.